It's time for fantasy basketball prep. Let's for today's pod, we are going to just talk about the top 7 key offseason moves. Big move number 1. Donovan Mitchell traded to the Cavaliers for Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, 3 first-round picks, and 2 swaps. Shannon, do you think this helps or hurts Mitchell's value? We have him ranked 17th right now in early season rankings. Last year, he was about 18th in per game value. 8 cat.
Yeah, I would say it hurts his value at least a little bit. I don't think we're going to see his value tank with Cleveland, but he's joining a more talented team. You've got Mobley, you've got Garland, even guys like Kevin Love coming off the bench still. Once Rubio comes back, they have a nice deep roster. And I just feel like we're going to see Mitchell's usage rate go down some joining the Cavs. Now, that could be offset. What could offset his value from a fantasy perspective as he becomes more efficient, maybe adds some more steals. I mean, he's had some solid seasons. He was at 1.5 steals last year. That was where he was at the first couple of years of his career as well. So he could offset that. But I really think the lower usage most likely would need to be offset by an increase in efficiency.
Let's look at the open opportunities too on this Jazz roster after the deal. They go into full rebuild. Colin Sexton might get 100 shots a game on this roster, especially when they move Bogdanovich and Conley. And Markkanen, man, they have no bigs in Utah. The center position's wide open. Power forward is awfully vacant too, unless you consider the carcass of Rudy Gay and Vanderbilt as options. But Markkanen should get as many minutes as his health will allow. So those two, to me, big arrows pointing up.
You have to assume Bogdanovich is going to be gone as well as Conley. Yeah, I like Sexton and Markkanen both this year. I think you can draft Colin Sexton around 75. I think getting Lauri Markkanen inside the top 100 is fine. Vanderbilt's really interesting to me this year, especially since, like you mentioned, their center position with Walker Kessler and Udoka Azubuike. That's their center rotation right now. So I think, Sexton and Markkanen this year, I love them. Get them in the top 100 for sure. Sexton could maybe even go like 60 or 70, and that wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, Vanderbilt had a ton of helium before the trade. A lot of folks thought he would get a run at the 4 and the 5 for Utah. With Markkanen there, Kessler, Walker Kessler, as Alex mentioned, I'm not as high on Vanderbilt. I still think he's a good late round flyer. Colin Sexton, meanwhile, when he was still in Cleveland before the trade, was being drafted in like the 120, 130 range, was just the forgotten man. And now his ADP on Underdog, for instance, is already up to like 85. We're doing a draft together. I selected him 75. I think it was 75, 76, right in that range. I wouldn't be surprised if he creeps up to top 60 value within the next few weeks.
All right, let's go to big move number 2. Dejounte Murray going to the Atlanta Hawks as the Spurs plunge into their rebuild. Guys, does this super duo backcourt in Atlanta, Trae Young and Murray, is this going to work fantasy-wise?
I'm a little worried. I think from what I'm seeing about Dejounte Murray's ADP, it's a little high. I think he's in the early 20s. I wouldn't do that. I think, Trae, I'm worried about both of them, honestly. Like, there's no way this backcourt combines for 18 assists a game. That's not a thing that happens. Murray is probably the one who takes the bigger hit. He's the guy coming in. He's the worst player. I don't like it necessarily as a fit because Murray's floor spacing isn't good. They play a traditional center. I think it's going to be fine in general. I think Atlanta is going to be a good team. Dejounte Murray's an excellent defender, sneaky defensive player of the year candidate, I think. But fantasy-wise, no, it worries me. I'd be targeting Murray like 30s or 40s, maybe. Trae Young doesn't change a lot, but honestly, I might drop him just a little bit.
I mean, to your point about 18 assists, so each player averaged 9 assists per game last year. That can't possibly continue And it sounds like you're thinking it's really Murray whose dimes are going to drop off more. You assume he holds the ball less.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I do think, Murray, we're probably going to be lucky if he gets 7. I would be amazed if he reaches 7 assists per game. We haven't projected for 6.9 right now. I think that 6 to 7 range is realistic. I wouldn't even be surprised if it dips a little bit lower, but I also still think he's a top 40 value. Like Alex said, if he's going top 25, I'm going to pass. I'm going to pick someone else who I believe is higher upside. But for Murray to reach the upside that he reached last season, he's not going to be able to do it playing alongside Trae Young. There's still plenty of value, still top 40 value. I picked him 35th in the slow draft we're currently doing. I like him in that range.
Talk about all the fantasy gems that maybe can be uncovered with the Spurs.
I mean, there's a lot there. Who isn't a gem in San Antonio right now? I think Keldon Johnson, I'm pretty sure is going to be their number one option. Although he's being drafted around the same point that Devin Vassell is being drafted in fantasy right now, which I think is around that 75 range. I get that because Vassell has defensive upside. He showed a little bit of playmaking. Keldon Johnson has not been a playmaker historically. Vassell's going to hit his threes. So I kind of get where people are coming from with that. And then I like Tre Jones. I assume you can get him after pick 100 in most drafts. 9-cat, he's great because he was in his starts. He averaged like 7 assists to 1.5 turnovers. All those guys are good. I'm not, Pirtle, I don't know how much offensive usage he's going to increase on. I think in deep leagues, there's like some sneaky McDermott stuff, but no standard league action for McDermott necessary.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not touching McDermott, but Vassell, Tre Jones, I like both of those options. Just to give you a kind of a taste of what they did last year. Once Vassell became a permanent fixture in the starting lineup for the final final 25 appearances of the season, he averaged 14.4 points, 4.3 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 1.2 steals, and 2.5 3-pointers. Decent efficiencies, 89% from the line, 40% from downtown, only 42% from the floor. Likewise, Tre Jones, he had a 5-game stretch near the end of the season where he started all 5 games, 14 points, 4.6 rebounds, 8.2 assists, 1.2 steals.
Well, Shannon, take us to the big signing in New York.
All right. Jalen Brunson signs a lucrative deal with the New York Knicks, making their big free agent splash. Yeah, he played really well when Luka was hurt in Dallas last year, especially in the playoffs versus Utah. Good percentages, but he also never played alongside a ball-dominating power forward like Julius Randle. RJ Barrett also is going to have his hands on the ball a ton. So how do you guys see Jalen Brunson fitting in New York?
I'll keep my opinion quick because Nick and I think have talked about this on Brunson on like 2 straight podcasts. I'm higher on Brunson than Nick is, for example. I think they signed him to be their number one option. Whether that's a 1A and 1B with Barrett is hard to say. Some of it depends on how much Barrett improves. I don't know if Randall's there for the long haul. It's a tough situation to evaluate. But what do you think, Ken?
Well, I think they specifically signed Brunson to get the ball out of Randall's hands. I'm going to steal from Alex's news posting when the Knicks signed him, the player news posting on RotoWire, how fabulous Brunson's per 36-minute production was in Dallas when Luka was not on the floor. So his per 36 without Luka, 22.1 points, 7.4 assists, 4.5 rebounds, and a steal a game. I'm sure that was about 2+ threes made as well. So it wasn't like Luka. I think for anyone who thought, Luka's creating a lot of shots for Brunson, that really wasn't the case. He's a playmaker. He can drive to the basket, which is deceptive considering he's not that tall. But I think they got him to get the ball out of Randall's hands. They haven't had a legit point guard in New York since Mark Jackson? It seems like forever.
Starbury had at least one good year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And obviously they invested a ton of money in him. So they want to hand him as much as he can handle. So I would grab him with the top 50 pick and be confident about it.
I got Brunson in the 70s in our current.
I know
our current best ball.
I think he's underranked right now.
All right, guys. Well, let's go to Minnesota, where they fully committed to going big as they made a trade to get Rudy Gobert, giving Utah 4 first-rounders, Malik Beasley, Vanderbilt, some draft swap, and other players. Alex, can Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert play well together?
I think they'll be fine on the court together. I think Towns prefers to be out on the perimeter anyway. He's not a great rim protector. There could be some interesting high-low stuff there. I'm a little worried for fantasy for Towns. I'm not worried about Gobert. I think Gobert is going to play the same role he always has because he literally cannot do another thing on the basketball court. And you trade all that capital for him, so what else is he going to do? Towns, I have some concerns this year. People seem not to be fazed at all by the trade. They're still drafting him roughly in the first round. I don't know. I'm worried about his rebounds. I'm worried about his blocks. I know his threes are probably going to increase, but you have someone like Gobert is such a dominant rebounder. It wouldn't surprise me if Towns drops to like 8.5 rebounds a game. His blocks were only at 1.1. I don't think he's getting blocks out on the perimeter, really. So, I mean, it's never dipped below 1.1, but you never know. And then Anthony Edwards is also on the verge of stardom, so he could be taking some usage from Towns as well. So if Towns averages like 22 and 8 with like 0.9 blocks, that wouldn't shock me. And then all of a sudden he's like in the 30, he's like the 35th best fantasy player instead of like the 12th. That just concerns me. I can't take him. I'm not going to take him inside the top 15 this year. If he slips outside 15, I'm interested, but I have my concerns.
Yeah, I'm with you, Alex. It's not only is he's going to be pulled away from the rim, so like you mentioned, rebounds, blocks, those things are those two categories likely go down. Also, efficiency that I worry about. So you're trading multiple categories: field goal percentage, blocks, rebounds, and only getting a growth area in 3-pointers. That's it. So, even free throws, right? Like if he's playing on the perimeter more, he's probably going to take less free throw attempts. So it is a worry, but he's such a good talent that I still think he's a top 15 pick. So yeah, I'm picking him ahead of Gobert in fantasy. And I like him at that turn. If you get to the turn and you can package, you grab Cat and Lillard or Cat and Trae Young or whatever it may be, and you have that guard big man combo, it's a very appealing strategy to take.
Alex, take us to our big move number 5 and new personnel in Dallas.
Yeah, this is a big fantasy move. So we have Christian Wood heading to Dallas. I think the Rockets got back like the 25th pick in the draft or something like that. This opens up the starting center gig for Alperen Sengun, which is extremely exciting for everyone who loved Sengun last year. Shannon, I'm gonna kick it to you for a question about Christian Wood quickly. Say that 5 times fast. I'm seeing him being drafted still around like the 50 to 60 range, which is about where he finished last year. But there's reports that he's going to be starting the season off the bench. What is your read on this?
I mean, I believe those reports that he's going to start the season off the bench, but I also think he's going to play the most amount of minutes out of anyone in that front court for Dallas. Whether it's Dorian Finney-Smith playing a small 4, JaVale McGee is who we have currently projected to be the starting 5. I don't think that holds, essentially. I think Wood will eventually be the starter. And even if he's not, he's the one who's going to be playing 32 minutes per game.
As far as Sengun goes, I'm excited. I think he's being drafted, I think, later than he should be right now in ADP. He's going like, oh man, he might be going like the 80s right now, which I think is far too low. I mean, because at that point,
Boban and Willie Cauley-Stein are going to push him for minutes. I can't see that at all. I can't even.
Cauley-Stein's on a camp deal, by the way. He's not even actually. He's fighting for a spot.
Oh,
so it's gonna be like Usman Garuba and Kenyon Martin are gonna back up Şengün at center. Yeah, Şengün should go before 80. I think there's an argument to take him around the 50 range, because if you look at who else is going in that range, you're talking about like, well, do you want like Jakob Poeltl? Do you want Clint Capella? A lot of people are going to take Ayton over him, but it's like Nurkic, Valanciunas, some of those guys. I think Şengün has a ton of upside this year. His floor, I think both his floor and his ceiling are high. I know he has foul trouble issues, but I don't think the Rockets are going to be like, well, Şengün has 5 fouls in the fourth. We got to wait.
Right. What are they playing for? His per 36, he's looking at 3 stocks a game, steals and blocks. That's great. And almost a 3-pointer a game as well. So, well, Shannon, take us to big move number 6. And the new move is by the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, Celtics add Malcolm Brogdon. Yeah, table set for Tyrese Halliburton, my boy, in Indy to totally take over. You know, Halliburton's pretty much locked into a top 20 in anyone's rankings. I would argue he's top 15. And if you get crazy, you could draft him at the end of the first round. But what about Brogdon, Ken? What's his role going to be like in Boston?
Well, first, I agree with you. I think Halliburton is the headline on this move because Brogdon's going to be in the running for 6th man of the year. This is the Boston Celtics starting 5 for the second half of last season was the most productive unit in basketball, and they're not going to disrupt that. Brogdon is going to be a great both point guard and shooting guard off the bench. And frankly, this Celtics team is very thin in the front court. I think we're going to see a lot of small ball with Brogdon and Derek White getting major minutes, both playing some 3.
Yeah, so if you're drafting Brogdon in a standard league, it should probably be with your last pick. And he's better for like best ball or deeper league or something just because of the injury issues. And they might rest him on back-to-backs or something anyway. Who knows?
Yeah, his game count will drive you crazy probably.
The bigger news, like Shannon was alluding to, is Halliburton, and I think Shannon did he did a good job like setting that up. It's just Halliburton was basically a 20-10 guy with 2 steals after he got to Indy on efficient shooting. So that's someone who could be a first-round pick, and you're assuming improvement as well. So he's just a guy who his fantasy numbers or his numbers translate extremely well to fantasy. There are some guys who do, some guys who don't. Halliburton's one of those guys. He's in the huge role. Could be an all-star this year.
Halliburton has legit top 5 upside this season from a fantasy value standpoint. Like it's insane. I'm not saying he's going to go out there and average 25, 26 points per game, but because of the steals, because of 3-pointers, because of the efficiency, the assist numbers are going to be ridiculous. He's a good one if you're looking for a prop bet on assist leader.
All right, well, Shannon, as our reigning Detroit Pistons expert, talk about big move number 7.
All right, so Jerami Grant moving on from the Pistons to Portland, traded for a protected 2025 first-round pick. Yeah, what do I expect from Jerami Grant? I expect Jerami Grant to not have as big of a role in Portland, obviously, as he did in Detroit. Especially before Cade Cunningham arrived in town, Jerami Grant got that little taste of being the go-to scorer, which is a role he should not be in. But now he's fit in a better role, a role that's better suited for his talents in Portland. He'll be the starting power forward. You're probably gonna have Nurkic starting at the 5, Simons and Lillard at the guards. Small forwards kind of to be determined. I think Josh Hart might get the first look, but we currently have Nas Little as the projected or listed atop the depth chart. Gary Payton, Justice Winslow, Keon Johnson. There are some other guys who could factor in the mix, not to mention Shaedon Sharp, the rookie. What was he, 7th or 8th overall pick? I forget what number it was, but he was a top 10 pick for Portland. So Grant's locked in at the 4. Now, anyone drafting Grant, he's a top 100 pick. I think he's going in the 70, 80 range in a lot of drafts I've seen. I think you're okay to draft him there, but don't draft him expecting the 19 and 4 that he averaged last year.
Try RotoWire today, free for 10 days. Get our premium tools, rankings, analysis, and breaking news alerts. No credit card required. Go to rotowire.com/try.